Bushcraft 412. Today, guys, we have the Condor Knife and Tool Survival Craft 4-inch knife. Let's take a look at this bad boy. This is a 4-inch Condor knife, and let's go through the stats real quick before we go anywhere. The blade is 4 inches long with an overall length of 8.5 inches. Weight is around 6 ounces with the sheath. It's made of 1075 high carbon steel and is epoxy coated with the black epoxy powder coating. The handle is made of high impact polypropelene, and the thickness of the blade is 1/8 of an inch, and it has a lanyard hole as well. Sheath is a standard leather, very similar to a lot of the other Condor knife and tool. Has the stamped logo in it. Very thick, durable, good belt loop, thick belt loop. Very nice, very good plus to the Condor line is they have pretty awesome sheaths. Now let's take a look at the knife itself. As you can see, this is kind of a unusual design in the blade. It has a bit of a thumb ramp, which is kind of nice, and a little bit of a finger choil there, so if you're doing some work, but there's not much else to prevent your hand from slipping up. One of the other things I do like about the Condor line is that the Condor logo is actually stamped into the blade. It's not just written on there. So I do like that. It's kind of an old thing that people just don't seem to do anymore. And on this side it's stamped El Salvador, which is where these are made. The handle is about as plain as it can get. Also stamped with Condor in the handle. Kind of smooth. It's probably going to need a little bit of grip tape because I could definitely see this being wet as a bit of a problem. Now the edge itself is a convex grind. Very close to a Scandi, but it's more of a convex grind. Full length, nice little belly to it. And let's talk about this knife and my experiences with it so far. I've had this thing about a week, and as you can see, it's got a little bit of wear and tear on it already. I took it out and did some testing with it, and I have some pretty mixed feelings about this. Let's just say, out of the box, this was not very sharp at all. Couldn't even cut cardboard, actually. It was pretty dull. So I took to it with some sandpaper, because that is how you're supposed to sharpen convex edges. And so I took to it with some sandpaper, and that sharpened it up enough where it was no longer extremely dull, just a little dull. So I took it out and did some testing with it, cut some like cardboard paper, and then I took it out in the woods and did some carving with it. Where this knife really excels is with wood. The grind on the knife, the convex grind, is, in my opinion, when they made it, the Condor line, the edges are hand ground, so one Condor to the next, you're not going to get the same grind, and so I'm sure there's a little bit of variation in all the different models, and even one knife to the next. And this one just had too shallow of a grind near the edge, which is to say your normal convex edge should be kind of tapered, kind of like this. Well, more, like, of course, best I can do with my hands here. But with this one, it's a little shallow. And so what I ended up doing is, after some testing, I took it down into the basement and I hit it up with a Dremel and kind of pulled the shoulder back a little bit on that and flattened out the grind a little bit, and the performance is a lot better now after having done that. And I tried to polish it up a little bit to get rid of all the marks, but as you can see, I did not do such a great job with that. Now, performance, it does fairly well with wood, which is probably your main purpose of this knife, is to use as kind of a small bushcraft knife. It actually performs very well with wood. I made some feather sticks with it, and it came out great. It really does a good job with feather sticks. This knife just is, the grind on it, just, unless I really want to completely reprofile this, it's never going to be a fantastic knife, which is unfortunate. I do love the Condor line, but that grind just didn't come out as good as it should have. So with that said, that's my only complaint. The handle feels pretty good. The blade weight, balance, everything else like that is actually really good. And it's a nice, carbon steel. 1075 is an excellent steel. And other than that, just that grind is kind of tough to get around. And I definitely understand, seeing this is a quite a nice budget knife, why there's not more videos out here on this knife. It just, maybe I consider there being two options. One is that the knife is just too small to have this kind of grind, and that convex grind is just too shallow for this knife. Or my other option is that whoever ground it just did a really bad job. Not sure which. I'm not an expert. But let's take a look at the competition. This here is another Condor knife. This is the 5-inch bushcraft, which is one of my absolute favorites when it comes to bushcraft knives. As you can see, it is a similar profile, similar shape. Major difference is, of course, the handle materials. This one is wood, and the 5-inch is, of course, a little bigger. Now, as you can see, you can tell right off, you can see how polished the edge is on this versus this one. Not as polished. I really think, maybe leaning towards it was just a bad grind. And let's take a look at the other next closest competition, in my opinion, is a Mora. And this one here is my very well used, probably 10-year-old Mora. Not even sure the model number anymore, I can't remember. And let's talk about the competition. The Survival Craft is a 4-inch blade, and it cost me $25 shipped. Not too horrible for a carbon steel fixed blade knife. Not a lot on the market that is cheaper than that. This here 5-inch bushcraft knife, I think I paid around $30, $32 for, but it has a much better grind to it, which that could be coincidence. But it's a heavier, probably about 3 to 4 ounces heavier, and a lot of that's because of the handle. The polypropelene is very lightweight. But overall, I find this to be a much more useful knife, but a lot heavier, if weight is an issue and size is an issue. Now the Mora, of course, is the next big competition. Now the Moras, if you're not familiar, look them up. Awesome knives. I've had quite a few of them over the years, and I use them quite a bit. You can get them in a variety of steels, from stainless steel to laminated steel to carbon steel. This one here is an old carbon steel. As you can see, it's rusted up and got quite a patina on it just from bringing it backpacking. Now, the Mora is about 2.5 ounces, and with the sheath is around 3 ounces. So you're looking at about half the weight, but not nearly as thick. As you can see, there's quite a difference in thickness between the two of these. Blade length is very similar. Blade shape very different. However, the Mora does have a true Scandi grind, which is to say it's a flat grind rather than a kind of arched. I guess that's the best way I can do it. The Scandi grind, I think, outperforms the convex a little bit. Scandi grind's easier to maintain than a convex. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely easier to maintain. Price on the Mora, anywhere from like $10 to $30, depending on which model you get. So, let's get these out of the way. So overall, I mean, this isn't a horrible knife. But given the problem I'm having with the grind, I do consider the Mora to be a better choice if you're really restricted by budget. If it's a matter of weight, then you can definitely go with something slightly bigger like the bushcraft here. So, kind of a tough call, mixed feelings on it. I do like the knife, but I don't foresee this getting a ton of use because of the problem with the grind. And plus, one of the other things is with a convex edges are kind of difficult to maintain. You can't use, because they are kind of, like I said, that rounded edge, you can't use a normal sharpening stone on them. At least you can, but it requires a lot of skill. You have to kind of roll the blade up as you do it. a lot of skill, very tough to get a good edge on with a sharpening stone. So the way most people sharpen a convex edge is to get a mouse pad and to get some sandpaper and to basically kind of like strop it on the sandpaper. And to use sandpapers ranging from like 400, 200 grit, or I'm sorry, like 200, 400 grit area, and then go all the way up to, you know, maybe like 2,000, which will help polish and clean up the blade. Of course, you can also put a leather strop. With this, I did clean this up with a Dremel a little bit to take that shoulder down a little, polished it up a little bit, and then I tried to sharpen it up a little bit further with my ceramic rods and sharpening steel, but it's just not doing the trick. That shoulder's really going to need some work if it's ever going to be super, super sharp. So, with that said, this is the Survival Craft 4-inch knife from Condor Knife and Tool. Okay knife for the money, but better investments. But if you really do like the Condor line, it is a nice knife. Hope you enjoyed. Bushcraft 412.